thoughtful comments. However, we do think that you might have misinterpreted our stance. We are only pointing out that the argument that presented in the case is an economic argument. It seems to imply a cost-benefit analysis, but it's vague in the sense that we do not know, it doesn't provide ways in which we should be spending this other money. Therefore, we do bring that part of it up. Another thing I'd just like to throw out there is, as far as Peter Singer is concerned, I think that he would also argue that there's a lot of commodities and items of clothing and accessories that we are currently taking advantage of that would be unethically warranted. So to take a Peter Singer kind of view is maybe perhaps to take a further, more extreme view than you might first consider.
Right. The kind of we're kind of afraid of utilitarians at some point, especially Peter Singer, because this idea of this calculatable world, you know, in the beginning, like you talked about fragility or the consideration of biodiversity. These are really hard things to, you know, kind of theorize. You know, especially there's of course the corny cliche of harmony nature, you know what I mean? These are very foreign human concepts that are kind of implemented into the kind of fabric of the world. So we want to point out that, of course, we were focusing on Kakabo, but we're not also saying that let's put all the gaze on this kind of one species and kind of forget everything else. We would like to, as we were talking about, what would you do with the creatures that we have introduced into this environment? I mean, those kind of need to be considered within our kind of idea of ourselves in the world too. And so, yeah, just kind of going on and clarifying some of the points we made.
It seems like, especially as to the invasive species that are involved, you did mention that there's a concern of killing off the other species and therefore having favoritism, but really we think that the best option that we've considered is possibly introducing some level of sterility to reduce the numbers of the invasive species so that there is no harm to the animals' population, there's no favoritism, and there's just a reduction to the threat to the combo.
Yeah, I mean, just to sum up and just recapitulate some of these points that are already made. The point about the single fire can destroy the entire species. I guess we're thinking that this is, you know, this idea is not something we're willing to give ourselves over to, or we're really kind of skeptical about if that's actually the case. Another thing is kind of question of Kakabo today versus climate change tomorrow. I mean, our position anyway, we would be happy to try to you know, do what we can about climate change and Kakabo. So I guess I don't see that it's a choice there that we have to make. You know, I mean, a note though, and I mean, I think this really complicates the case even more when we talk about the stoat or the other invasive species. I don't know exactly what our position on this is, because it's kind of outside of the scope of the case as far as the discussion maybe, but I can tell you what they are doing in New Zealand about the stoat. They are trying to kill them all. So, I mean, that's really kind of hard to understand our relationship to our own mistakes or something like this. We introduced the Kakabo, or the stoat, it kills all the Kakabo, and now we gotta kill them both. You know, I don't know if that's really clear or systematic, but I think it's maybe a larger problem than we can come up with a solution to, or at least that we have yet. So.
But we are sticking to our point that we consider it more ethical, and I hate to put it in that kind of context, this idea of ethical, rather than we see it as a kind of a part of us being in the world to, in this case, go and try to save as much as Kakabo while considering the biodiversity of the kind of environment. We good? We'll close. Okay.
All right, I just want a minute to. Sure.
saving one animal here, we're saving another animal there, you know, extinction. Where do we draw a line as a society? What animals we do save?
I think when it comes to cockapoo, I don't know, from the information that we have, it doesn't seem like saving the cockapoo would be that detrimental to its environment. It seems to be a successful program, and it seems to be, again, from this article and the links, that it's being done without harming the environment or other species, except the one I'm aware of, the one that you kind of bring up from being boots on the ground over there. But yeah, and you know, I just don't think this situation like demands for that kind of like ethical dilemma of like, what should we do? It seems to be.
So then bring it up, so where in general in the world, not specifically this, do we draw the line on who we're gonna save or what we're gonna save or where we're gonna intervene?
I just don't think there's a theoretical way to deal with that unless you're taking it to looking at the specific kind of situation and kind of theorize based on kind of the limited kind of access humanity has to epistemological endeavors, you know, because it's so, everything is so intertwined. I mean, there's stuff like game theory underused, and I don't have much kind of faith in mathematics, but I think what that is seems to be one way that humanity is trying to calculate its effect in the world, especially when it comes to how it's harming its surroundings.
And just, if I can, just briefly talk about, we talked about the cost-benefit analysis. This case, the argument seems to be invoking that idea, but there is no